Welcome back to BAS 120. We're on Chapter 3, Visualization and Exploring Data. So this is how we can send our message and communicate our message very quickly. You're going to see a lot of examples. This one right here happens to be one of airline traffic, and it's very interesting. We'll show you a couple videos where you can really see, particularly if you do this over time, where it spreads from the East Coast if you're looking at the United States to the West Coast. And then very interestingly, you also see where in the middle of the night the hub, because of FedEx, all hubs around Memphis, Tennessee. So very interesting, lots of new capabilities on how to make your data very visual, which we'll go through. But let's talk about some of the learning objectives for this section. We'll talk about within Microsoft Excel how to create a chart, how to pick and choose the appropriate chart, how to sort our data set. We'll talk a little bit about Pareto principles. How do we analyze, the 80-20 rule? 80% of our profits might come from 20% of our products. We'll talk about how to do Excel auto frequency, how to do frequency distributions, and a lot of these will be in the examples sections as I go through the videos of each example that's presented in the chapter. We'll talk about percentiles and quartiles. We'll talk about how to utilize pivot tables, which are very, very powerful to explore and summarize data, how to use pivot tables to construct cross tabulations, and how to display the results of our pivot tables using pivot charts. So let's get right into creating an Excel chart, which again, there'll be lots of example videos that'll show you how to do it, but it's a very powerful set of options. So you highlight your area, you say insert, and you can pick from all sorts of chart types, column charts, pie charts, line charts, bubble charts, almost infinite, and you can do 3D, etc. And the examples will show you how to do all of those charts. There are examples of each one of the major chart sets, but I encourage you to discover on your own. It's kind of fun to play around and look at the different charts. So all of those are examples of. So let's talk about, if we've got all of these options, how do we know which one's the best and how to lay out so we communicate our information or visualize our information properly? Well, a couple of 4 steps to figure out the appropriate chart or how to communicate the data. First, we need to understand what the goal is, what we're trying to accomplish. Then we need to choose the right tool. And then we need to highlight our point. And then I think it's always important to keep it relatively simple. Okay? So if we talk about how to understand your goal, I remember planes, trains, and automobiles when, they said, when you say something have a point. Well, I don't know if you've seen the movie or not, but it's interesting. Anyways, the first thing I would do when I'm trying to visualize the data or present the data is to say, what 2 or 3 messages do I want my audience to remember? Right? And in picking those, you might want to say, well, why are these messages important to my audience? What actions can my audience take with these messages? Not just information that's interesting, but what actions can they take with these messages to improve their results? And then lastly, once I have these 2 or 3 messages that I want them to remember a month from now or whatever, what data do I have that supports my key messages? So that's your first step, is to understand what your goal or your top 2 or 3 messages are. Now I can pick the best tool to support my data. Now normally a bar chart or column chart, which you have here, is good when I have independent variables and I'm trying to compare one value to another. Like a salad bar chart where I've got different menu items and I want to compare which is the volume of each one. Pie charts is used oftentimes when I want to know what percentage of the whole, what ratio is this of the whole. Line charts tend to be very good when I'm trying to show trends or patterns. Now, I encourage you, when you show the data, to insert a key message of what the point is. Just like down here where we have some key points of this chart, because what happens lots of times is even if you want to help, I think, help your audience. So even if I don't understand all this or if I don't have to look at it, it's nice if somebody puts a comment in there that says, what's the key point or what is this data telling us, helping your audience to understand it very quickly. So, highlight your points. Lots, as I just said, you've got all your data displayed. Sometimes you want a very simple statement, something like annual revenues are up 8%. That's the message of my data. That's my point. I mean, it may not be that. It's whatever your point is in the data. But to me, if you keep it simple, straightforward, this is what all this data is telling us. And you have the data there for them to research it and understand, but you're giving them one of those 2 or 3 main points you want them to remember. So the last point is to keep it simple. Most folks will say use relatively large font, keeps it easy to understand, avoid long sentences. They tend not want to have to read a lot of stuff. And you can have some detailed backup for information. Organize the flow of your information, and don't make your audience wait to get to the answers of of what your points are. Get right into it. So that's some of the rules of thumb for data visualization. Now, data sorting, pivot tables, pivot charts, they're examples on how to sort data, how to do Pareto analysis, how to do auto filters, how to do pivot tables, and how to do pivot charts. So that's all in there. We go through all 10 or 15 examples that there are in the book. And then there's more. Again, Excel Fun is a great source for even more ways to visualize and display data. Couple of the key terms all in your book. Frequency distribution gives you a layout of how frequent different categories are. We show you how to do that in Excel. Relative frequency just takes the absolute frequency and puts it in percentages or relative amounts. And then the other terms that are in there are all of the different plethora of different types of charts. Have fun with this. It's a great way to both analyze the data and visually present your data. If you have any questions after this or after going through the examples, send me an email. Thanks.